Hey, it's me, Ray, host of this very podcast. What if you had insights into your genetics that could help you live healthier? And how would you use that knowledge to change your life? You can hear me talk about how insights from my DNA have affected my personal health journey on this season of the podcast Spit from iHeartRadio and 23andMe. Host Baratunde Thurston explores how DNA isn't just about ancestry, it's a key to understanding your health. On this season, you'll hear me and 22 other podcasters discuss what genetics revealed about our health and how that knowledge has impacted the way we live our lives. Listen to my episode out now on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Tired of long waits and rushed care at the ER and urgent care clinic? Next time, stay home and let Dispatch Health bring the power of the hospital to you.
I call Dispatch Health. A care team of medical professionals actually come to your house.
They're the same caliber of people that you would see if you were at a hospital or an urgent care.
Dispatch Health can treat most non-life-threatening emergencies.
They can do the x-rays, they can do stitches,
urinary tract infections, blood test, urinalysis, ultrasound.
It's almost everything that they can do at the ER.
You never feel rushed. They're there for you and only you.
I felt like their only patient.
And it costs no more than a trip to urgent care because Dispatch Health is covered by most insurance, including Medicare. See if we serve your home at dispatchhealth.com.
Dispatch Health really went above and beyond.
It's wonderful to have care come to your home.
House calls are back, and they're better than ever. Learn more at dispatchhealth.com.
You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins. What's up, everybody? Happy Christmas week, or whatever holiday you celebrate. Hopefully you can just chill. Like, let's all take a collective breath because, the world feels really unstable now more than ever. I mean, well, maybe not more than ever, but now it just feels really cyclical, right? More on that in a moment. But I have to tell you, first of all, thank you for everybody sharing, listening, distributing the Best of 2021 podcast around. I just always love that show. Love the feedback that I get from it. And it's always appreciated because that's frankly why we all are engaged in this independent music community, to find out about records and bands and stuff they may have missed. And I really, really dig doing that. So thank you for everybody who listened to that episode. And if you missed it, obviously go back, listen to the Best of 2021 podcast that we did. Today is another special guest this week. His name is Ken Andrews. He plays in a rock band called Failure. He also played in You're the Rabbit and did his own solo thing for a while, which I actually bring up in this interview because I saw him perform at Fingerprints Music here in Long Beach, California. But Failure is such a huge band for me, and I got into them via Cave-In. And I'll talk about that more in the intro of the interview where I speak to Ken. But I was pretty nervous about this because, Ken doesn't come with a reputation preceding him as far as being, prickly or, a difficult interview or anything like that. But man, this was such a fun hang. He was down to just chop it up, and I really enjoyed that experience. And they have a brand new record that just came out, I want to say a couple weeks ago. It is called, I'm looking it up as we speak, Wild Type Droid. It is an unbelievable record. I mean, if you liked, Fantastic Planet and everything that kind of built their fan base, you will absolutely love this new record of theirs. And it's a heavy rock record, man. Just listen to it. You'll probably enjoy it if you've ever liked what Failure has done in the past. But so we talked to him. But you can always email the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. You can also do me this is a new favor I'm asking of you. Spotify just recently rolled out a star ranking for specific podcasts. So if you go into the 100 Words page, you can give it a star rating. And I would appreciate that because once you do that, it makes you more legitimate in that app's eyes, and then all the algorithms work in your favor. So if you listen to the show on Spotify, please leave it a star review. I would appreciate that. And then you can always do that on Apple Podcasts. Write a review if you'd like. I did recently see some people posting reviews on there, and I appreciate that. Thank you for doing those things. And Yeah, I've been paying attention to obviously the horrible resurgence of COVID in regards to shows being canceled and tours having to, move even further out next year. And it feels so weird and tenuous. And I know that many people are feeling anxiety in regards to that because I know many musicians and people who are doing the damn thing as far as touring is concerned and playing live music are listen to this show. And I feel for you. I wish that there was some light at the end of the tunnel. And I know that many of us are kind of trying to process that, but it will come back. I know it will. And I'm not just trying to be positive for positive's sake. Live music will always exist. And it's just a matter of finding our way through the weirdness that is right now. So yeah, keep your head up. I will be here ready and waiting to come back to live shows. I've been to a few, but am I going to be going to them over the next month or so? Probably not. I'm going to take a pause on that. So anyways, let's talk to Ken Andrews. Like I said, the new Failure record is called Wild Type Droid. It just came out, and it's a really good record. So we talk about that and many other things. So here is Ken. I can't believe I can say that. That's so stoked.
Empty nest with 3 small brown eggs. We'll think of something before the night falls. Don't hurt a fly, they all sang. Don't rape a girl in Bridesmaid.
I'm sure this is a statement that has been said to you before, but I 100% got into Failure in your music via Cave-In and their cover of Magnified. And it was one of those things like coming up in the punk and hardcore scene. That was, a very important band. And as they started to progress and then understand their influences, I was like, what's this Failure band all about? And then I felt like the sky opened up where I was like, oh, wow, how did I miss this? And
that's cool. That's a cool story.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's interesting for you to kind of hear those anecdotes to see how, I guess, different people kind of jump into your band from different generations. Is it interesting for you to kind of hear those little tidbits?
Oh yeah, I love it because we have pretty varied stories. I mean, a lot of it goes back to like, oh, I saw you in '95 open for Tool, because around those years we were doing a lot of support work for them. We were friends with them. We both got signed within like 6 months of each other, and we're playing like local bar shows in Hollywood. But then they clearly took off like really quickly, and we didn't. And so they were just like, "Hey, you want to see how big we are?"
Right.
And we were like, "What do you mean?" "Well, you can open for us." And we were like, cool. Actually, it was really cool because, especially in the very early days, Tool, they kind of went, they as they got bigger and bigger, their audience kind of, changed and got much more broad. I mean, now when you go to a Tool show, it's like a lot of families, you know? But back then, the hardcore metal people hadn't really embraced them yet. It was actually more like college kids who were like hearing about alternative rock and Nirvana and stuff like that. And so those shows were really fun because it was like, you could just tell like people were hearing a band like Tool and a band like Failure for the first time.
Yep.
And so there was an excitement because of that. It was like, it felt new, and it was like there was a lot of different kinds of people, good mix between male and female, and right. And it was fun. And both bands, as time went on, maybe a little bit more for Tool, the audience got a little bit more like hardcore metal. And then they kind of broke open even bigger, and then it got where it is right now, which is very broad.
Mm-hmm.
But I always remember those early shows as just being like so fun.
Right. And I know it was, I mean, I appreciate you articulating those, different touch points where, you watch your peers and other bands, grow and ebb and flow and obviously receive a lot of success. And then, generationally speaking, looking at a band like Cave In that's able to point people like me who, I'm in my early 40s and, I was obviously alive when you guys were gigging around, but it just was not on my radar. But a band like Cave In that can retroactively get me into something and then, like I said, be able to, open up Pandora's box of like, wait, there's this band that they are totally like, we'll be honest, like taking a lot of influence from you guys and then, building on it. And it's interesting to watch that. And then for me to be able to engage with your music and then obviously see you again as you started to come back and stuff like that. It's very interesting. That full circle nature is really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Steven is sort of become a friend of mine. I see him, once or twice a year usually. So that the connection I have with him and his band, is really just, I don't know, very organic and very, it's like one of those things, like you meet someone and you kind of feel like you already know him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. You're up. Well, and I think that's really cool that you feel that because I do think that people that exist in the, for lack of a better term, DIY scene, you have that immediate connection of like, oh yeah, I know what it's like to play in front of 4 people and have no one care about my music or like you're in the trenches together and you know it.
Totally. Yeah. Shared experience is awesome.
Yeah, very true. Very true. And so kind of putting the spotlight on you as an individual, I know you were born and raised in Seattle proper, or did you come up in actually Seattle or the suburbs surrounding?
Actually in Seattle.
Okay.
But this was, I moved, my childhood was mostly in the 70s in Seattle. So it was a very different place than it is now.
Yep.
We actually lived pretty much in the university district right there in the center of town, the University of Washington, because my mom worked there.
Okay.
So we always lived very close to the university, and so it was kind of the center of town. It's not downtown, but it's like, it's a very vibrant place. But then I moved to San Diego when I was 13, went to high school there, and then moved up to Los Angeles to finish college.
Mm-hmm.
I was studying film.
Right.
And then I've been in LA ever since then. So Seattle is very like childhood.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think most people start to develop an actual identity in, junior high and high school and stuff like that. And so it sounds like that was your experience in San Diego.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, that's well, it was, I mean, my identity was like, more San Diego, basically,
Sure.
And less me, but like, or less where I ended up. But yeah, no, there was, I mean, still, I listened to a lot of 91X when I went to high school.
Right.
So that's where the 80s, melodicism comes from for sure.
Yeah.
I know all the 80s, all like alternative or whatever they were calling, British
Right.
invasion.
New wave, et
new
cetera.
wave. Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, I'm glad you brought up the radio station because I think there's something that is so intrinsically powerful to people of, that 80s and 90s as well, where it's like you have these influential stations like 91X or K-Rock in LA and, there's different touch points across the country. But it was such a, that was the only way that you were able to consume music on a regular basis and then, tape it and listen to it back or whatever. But but to be able to expose you to these, left of center artists, even though they are played in the radio, is really important.
Yeah, I mean, radio was like that was like the thing. You'd listen to the radio, you get familiar with the playlist, and then once you kind of knew the playlist, you'd listen to your own records. Or my favorite thing was when I was in high school was making my own cassette mixtapes.
Oh yeah, where that's huge. Like where, especially too, if you were making them for friends or making them for a person you were trying to impress.
That was the thing. I mean, people were making tapes, and it was cool. And it was like you would leave a tape with a friend, or they would leave one with you, and it would fucking change you.
Yeah,
it would like, well, who did that song? And then you'd find that band, and then or act or whatever, and it was awesome. Or you tape. I remember. You remember West? Well, I don't know what era where you listened to the radio, but like when I was a kid, it was Westwood One live concert on the weekend.
Sure.
And man, I got really into taping those. And that's where that's probably where I got my first sense of, like, wow, it must be cool to be in a band.
Yeah. Totally. You're like, that seems kind of cool. I might be interested in that.
That sounds really, all that applause sounds really kind of neat.
Totally.
But actually just really getting into the differences between the live versions and the recorded versions of whoever was playing, like that was something I was super paying attention to. And looking back now, I could see like that I was very interested in sort of the recording side of things pretty early on.
Right. The documentation of it, how it could be different from the live.
Why is it different?
Studio. Right.
Yeah. Why is it different? Yeah. Why are they playing it faster?
Right.
It's making me excited.
Totally. This whole adrenaline thing is
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm driving faster right now.
Right. And I did not mean to do that. So like you were mentioning, radio was a touch point for music. Was there, do you have brothers and sisters that were also kind of influencing your music tastes, or parents, or was it all kind of like your friends and, like you mentioned, radio?
No, I had a younger brother, 2 years younger, who was by the time I was a junior in high school, he was pretty accomplished on guitar.
Okay.
And I just, my experience with playing a musical instrument had been limited to like maybe 2 failed piano lessons when I was in 5th grade. Right. And that was it. Yep. And I just never really thought about it. But I felt it was kind of like the combination of like, I could see the end of high school coming, which was I was starting to fear time a little bit. I think it was the first time I did that, and which probably normal for like a 17-year-old. Mm-hmm. And really getting into records and just kind of listening to the same records over and over again and really studying them and just getting to know them inside and out. And then one day I just kind of was I was hanging out with my brother in his room, watching him play along with a Rush. He was super into prog rock.
Okay.
And because of that, I have a soft spot for it too. Especially Rush in particular, not too many other bands, but
sure.
I go, dude, show me a couple chords. He's like, what? Why haven't you asked me this before? And it's, I don't know. Just show me a couple chords. Let me just learn a really simple tune. And he showed me a couple chords, and I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 months later, I was trying to use headphones as a microphone and plug them into my cassette recorder so that I could record a chord progression that I thought was amazing.
Right.
And so I got the bug. It was horrible, but I got the bug for writing something and recording it really early on. And so my playing skills, they did develop, but it wasn't my focus. It was more, my focus was like more composition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, especially, I mean, it's really cool that you had that little spark of just, when you put two chords together and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, this happens. I can do this.
Yeah.
Totally.
It was amazing. Oh, and then I could go to the third chord. The third chord could be different every other time.
Right.
Oh my God.
Well, to that point as well, that's when, as a kid, you feel no authority or autonomy. Like, you're told what to do. You're told to go to school and do, it's fine. That's part of the human process. But the moment that you feel like you have any control over your life, it's like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah. And for me, it was like, it was a very like, it was like a solo thing or solitude, I didn't do it. I didn't do any music, or I wouldn't do any music with people for another 4 years from there.
Right. Yeah,
so
building your chops.
No, I just I didn't take it seriously as a career path. I was just enjoying playing and learning guitar parts off records, basically. But I was also getting into, before I moved to LA, I think a few months before, I had bought like the cheapest cassette 4-track that was available. And so I had started experimenting with coming up with 2 guitar parts on top of each other. And that was another sort of milestone for me that just sunk the the hooks of playing music and recording and stuff deeper and deeper.
Even though you totally missed the holiday, maybe you didn't order your mother or father or brother or sister a good present. But you know what you can do? You can make it up to them by ordering from rockabilia.com, getting them something in the new year just to be like, you know what? When you're heading back to school, here's a rad Misfits shirt. Here's a rad Metallica shirt. Whatever it is you're into, you need to use the promo code 100 words or less, and that gets you 10% off your order. And then visit rockabilia.com because they have so many items, over 500,000 things that you can look at. If you want to spend bare minimum of 8 hours on their website, you'll be able to find something. You'll be able to probably view all 500,000 items if you spent that much time on a website. But regardless, this is all officially licensed, high-quality merchandise. The bands get paid. You're supporting an independent business. You're supporting this podcast. It is the virtuous cycle that you are tapping into when you are working with Rockabilia and ordering all of your favorite band merch. And they've got so many things. Like, it's still the winter season. Got to buy some hoodies and some scarves. They got all that from all of your favorite bands. So please go to rockabilia.com. 100 words or less is the promo code. Have fun exploring the website. And thank you, as always, to Rockabilia for your continued support of this show and bands and music in general. Hey, it's Ray, the host of this very podcast. And let me ask you a question. What if you had insights into your genetics that could help empower you to live healthier? How would you use that knowledge? You can hear me talk about insights from my DNA that have affected my personal health journey on this season of the podcast Spit from iHeartRadio and 23andMe. Host Baratunde Thurston, which, by the way, incredible dude, has a podcast called How to Citizen. I can't highly recommend that any more than I am right now, but listen to that and listen to this podcast. But he explores how more and more people are finding out that DNA is about more than just ancestry. It's a key to understanding your health. Your genetic profile can tell you if you are at an increased likelihood for developing a particular condition. It's knowledge that can help you make smarter choices about your health and your lifestyle. On this season of Spit, you'll hear me and 22 other podcasters and influencers discuss what genetics revealed about our health and how that knowledge can impact the way we live our lives. Listen to my episode out now on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. As you started to kind of, grow up and feel that pull towards, playing in bands and figuring out what that would look like, I'm going to presume that Failure was not your first band, because clearly, you started that up in LA. So did you play in other, sort of your first kind of terrible band experiences and stuff like that in San Diego, or was that LA?
Well, I had the first drummer of Failure, Robert Goss. I did jam with him in a barn for a few months.
Okay.
In North County, San Diego. He was drummer. And so yeah, I had a few, no performances really, but like I had a few like setting up a Marshall in a barn experiences.
Right.
But other than that, I didn't take it seriously. I wasn't taking it very seriously, and I was in college full time, so it was like more like a back burner thing. But it was something I did for fun, so I enjoyed it. It wasn't until I moved to LA, and then the kind of isolation I felt in LA, not having any friends from high school there. I mean, there were a couple, but they were going to UCLA on the west side, and I was going to Cal State LA on the east side. So I had like almost I had no family and pretty much no friends, which ended up being a good thing for what would eventually become Failure, because I kind of had my free time was basically spent diving deeper into 4-tracking. I went and bought a bass guitar at a pawn shop. I also got a drum machine at a pawn shop. And then I upgraded my 4-track to a better quality sounding version, basically, that I bought from someone from the recycler. So basically, I think by my sophomore year, my apartment bedroom studio had a 4-track recorder, a 58 microphone, a bass guitar, an electric 6-string guitar, a crappy drum machine, and a Carvin combo guitar amp. All of it used, all of it probably under $400 total.
Yeah, but you're dialed in right there. You got it all there.
Basically.
Yeah.
You do have it all. And I think I had 3 pedals. I had a flanger, a delay, and a distortion box.
Oh, incredible. I was going to say the Metal Zone pedal, but
no, yeah, I had the Rat.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
The old Rat.
Right. Well, I'm going to presume too that with the just fun and experimentation that you could do with all of those tools at your fingertips, you've always struck me just as a outside observer that you are you're friendly and outgoing, but at the same time, like, you're totally fine just locking yourself in. For example, the apartment with all of those fun tools. And just hanging out there for hours. So would you kind of, I guess, classically define yourself as a introvert or an extrovert, or is it kind of just like, well, I'm in the middle?
I mean, I don't mind. I don't avoid people, but you're right. I can't lose myself and be by myself for very, very long stretches of time, days and weeks. Basically. Sure. So what I remind myself of sometimes is, yes, I'm a songwriter and I write songs and I'm in a band, but I also kind of just feel like a tinkerer, like a grandpa in the garage.
Right.
Like,
it's your workbench.
It's my workbench. and I have an actual workbench, like where I mess around with guitars and pickups and pedals and cameras and just all that like all that stuff to me is just, I don't know. I could just literally, I do lose myself in it. And I love to tinker with toys, but the end result, it is pretty much always like music. There is, it's not only tinkering for tinkering. Like eventually I do finish something and there's a product to,
right. Yeah.
There's
you
a
get
product.
it out. Right.
Yeah.
You get it out, you get it off the workbench and you get it out there. Yeah, that makes sense.
Even if I'm just messing around with like camera and visual stuff, I'll end up with a video.
Right. Right.
And it might not be something that's released. It's just for family or friends or something. But like, I like making stuff.
Yeah. It's a finished product. Right. I get what you're saying. And, as you started to kind of really, express yourself, not only musically, but visually as well. Like, did you, I guess, kind of find yourself falling into particular music scenes, as it were, because I know as you were coming up in the, late 80s, early 90s, there were definitely a lot of different options, both in San Diego and LA, of being like, oh, I'm a, metal dude or a hardcore kid or a punk person or, alternative rock, whatever. Like, did you find yourself falling into any of those scenes or did you just kind of dip around them all?
We didn't feel connected to any scene at the time. Failure didn't, because no one really sounded like what we were doing.
Sure.
There was a punk thing, but we weren't punk. I mean, people were describing us as like art rock noise band or something. Like shoegaze wasn't really a word yet, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure people would have used that word. Some people use it now, or shoegazy space rock or whatever. But no, in fact, what we perceived as we were putting the band together and actually getting a 30-minute set of live music that we could play. What we were perceiving was what was the most popular thing at the clubs in Hollywood at the time was the whole hair band thing. Was
Sure.
just that was what was dominating the clubs where we wanted to play, and so we couldn't play those clubs. We had to play the dive bars in Hollywood, but that, I mean, it ended up being kind of cool and fun.
Sure.
And yeah, I don't know. I feel like the name of the band is a reaction. Actually, the real story of the name of the band was that we would make fun of all the hair bands, their ads for band members in the recycler.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
Like, must have professional attitude, pro hair required.
So good. Yeah, totally. Yeah, influences are, like Sacred Reich and, just like the second, third, fourth tier bands of those genres, and being like, what are you guys doing? This is ridiculous.
Well, the focus was on they had the ridiculousness of those ads was that they felt like they had cracked the code and they knew what a professional rock band member had to do in every category, what they had to wear, what instrument they played, what their hair was like, what kind of car they drove. All of it had been completely codified. And like it, and so I remember Robert, our first drummer, who was, I don't know if he coined it, but he brought up the name Failure, and the name Failure was being bandied about, and he was just like, I love it. I can't wait to see those guys' faces when they see an ad, Failure looking for a bass player.
True. That's really funny.
Like they would just be like, "What the fuck? Who, is that the band's name?" And that was the extent of our plan to be a band at that point, was to fuck with the hair bands. That was it. That was the business plan, right? That was the business plan. We executed it. And then the funny thing happened on the way to executing it, we got a record deal.
Right. Exactly. Well, and I find it interesting in the trajectory of, as you guys started to, get out there, and you were record labels, as far as the music business was concerned, were totally grasping at straws in regards to like, okay, this is like post grunge, and like, what's next? Like, we don't exactly know, but we know we could probably got to pick something adjacent to grunge. And so, that's kind of obviously where failure comes into play, because it's like, okay, they got melody, and they. No. Timeline a little off. Grunge had not happened. Okay. Oh, that's true. When you guys actually signed, that's true.
Well, our first show was in 89.
Right.
Like the very end of 89. And then, so 90 was the year where we really played. I think we played 16 shows in the first half of 1990, which was that. So that's a lot of shows for a local band, Sure. And sure enough, by like mid-year, we had a couple labels wanting to sign us. And that's when everything, like the whole thing just changed, because it was like, wait a second, this was to just fuck with those guys. And now you're telling me I should quit my day job? Like what?
Right.
Because I was at my day job at the time was actually kind of cool. I was directing music videos.
Sure.
For like major label rap artists, which was, the rap part of it was kind of weird, but directing was super fun. And I felt like it was kind of what I was training to do while I was in college. I did go to film school.
Right.
And so I kind of felt like, well, I'm sort of executing my plan. What is this plan? And their plan was, what we want you to make an album. We're going to release it. And then we want you to get in a van and go tour the country.
And you're like, but I'm good here. I'm good directing music videos.
There was a month or so, maybe 2-3 weeks, where I definitely was doing some soul searching, because in the end, I think I just couldn't say, like, if someone's going to pay you to make music, I mean, Jesus Christ, that's really hard to say no.
Totally. You're like, I got to try it at least.
I got to try it. And if it doesn't work out, I'll know in a year, and I can just come back to this other stuff. And then, here we are 30 years later.
Right. No, that's true. And I appreciate you correcting the time frame of that. I just, with your guys' progression, and then, as you started to deal with the business side of music, was that something that you, I guess, felt comfortable with or enjoyed? Or was it something that you just kind of needed to do because that was, how to get the band moving forward?
The business side of it? Like, you mean like,
like once you start, like booking shows and record deals, and like, oh, we got to do merch and like all of these things that, kind of obviously play an important part of the band life.
Oh, yeah. You're sort of like the loss of innocence, you mean?
Some could phrase it as such, yes.
Yeah, because the reality is that, and I don't know how many people know this, but like, if you're in a band, like a full-time band, and it's your career, you're spending way more time promoting music than you are making music. That's just the realities of it. So if you got in it to be on stage or in the studio the entire time, you're gonna have surprised. So. Yeah, I don't dig all that stuff. I mean, at this point, I'm pretty knowledgeable about it because I've been doing it for so long. But it's never been something that I totally love. I do what I do. These sort of adjacent things to making the music and playing the shows, to me, have more to do with like the imagery and maybe a little bit of the marketing. But doing the deals and all that stuff is like, ugh.
It's a drag.
It's a drag. I just want to. I literally. I'm like a kid like that. When I wake up, I just want to play. You know.
Yep.
Like play with my toys.
Sure. Hey, it's Ray, the host of this very podcast, and let me ask you a question. What if you had insights into your genetics that could help empower you to live healthier? How would you use that knowledge? You can hear me talk about insights from my DNA that have affected my personal health journey on this season of the podcast Spit from iHeartRadio and 23andMe. Host Baratunde Thurston, which, by the way, incredible dude, has a podcast called How to Citizen. I can't highly recommend that any more than I am right now, but listen to that and listen to this podcast. But he explores how more and more people are finding out that DNA is about more than just ancestry. It's a key to understanding your health. Your genetic profile can tell you if you are at an increased likelihood for developing a particular condition. It's knowledge that can help you make smarter choices about your health and your lifestyle. On this season of Spit, you'll hear me and 22 other podcasters and influencers discuss what genetics revealed about our health and how that knowledge can impact the way we live our lives. Listen to my episode out now on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Enjoy all your favorite sports like never before at BetMGM. Sign up using code JERSEY and your first wager is risk-free up to $1,000. When you register with BetMGM, you'll get instant access to a variety of parlay selection features, live betting options, player props, and daily boosted odds specials. And with BetMGM at your fingertips, every play and every game matter more than ever. Sign up today and find out why nothing beats a win at the King of Sportsbooks. Download the BetMGM app or go to BetMGM.com and enter code JERSEY and place your first wager risk-free up to $1,000. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. New customer offer. 21 years of age or older to wager. New Jersey only. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
So as you started to progress within the context of, doing the band stuff full time and everything, how were your, parents as you started to pursue these creative arts where it's like, it's one thing to be like, okay, I'm going to move to LA and, to get into film. Did your parents understand it all? Or were they just like, oh, Ken, I don't know about this. You're making a big mistake. Or where did they sit on the fence?
Well, there were two moments that the parents expressed themselves. The first moment was moving to LA, because the move to LA was my whole high school time. Everyone thought I was going to be a pre-med biology major at UCSD. Because I'd gotten a chance to work at the Salk Institute in San Diego, which is like a science research facility.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Jonas Salk, polio vaccine. Mm-hmm. And I worked in several different labs during the summers and even part-time during the school year in my junior and senior year there. So I got to know all these like famous scientists, and they wrote me these incredible like recommendation letters. And so, of course, I got right into like the best colleges in San Diego for biology or the pre-med track, basically, becoming a doctor. And so that everyone was like, oh, Ken's taken care of. It's all going to be fine. We have to worry about him. And then I surprised him because right after I graduated high school, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to go to UCSD.
That's a pretty big shift, right?
Yeah. And they're like, what? Yeah, I want to go to SDSU, which is, a class below in terms of university overall. mean,
Sure.
it's not a horrible university or anything, but
No.
UCSC, very prestigious, especially the pre-med program there. Turned it down and went to SDSU because they actually had a film department. And I had done a lot of sort of video production stuff in high school, and I knew I loved that. So basically I had this kind of like, epiphany or something towards the end of my senior year where I was just like, the train that I'm on, I want to get off, because I just, it was fun doing all that stuff, but I don't actually really like science that much.
Right. Sure.
I mean, I was good at it and I did learn a lot, but I wasn't like, the reality of it being a career path just really hit me. And I was just like, holy shit. No,
This is not for me.
this is not for me. I don't want to do this. And so I completely shifted gears and went to film school in San Diego. But the thing that happened there was that I got about one semester in, and I saw in the film building on the bulletin board, they had posted what all the previous year's graduates from the program were doing. And none of them were working in the business. Not one. They were all still in San Diego doing other shit.
Right.
And I ripped it off the board and walked into the dean of that college. And I was like, is this real or is this a hoax? He's like, that's real. And I go, my mouth was just open. And he goes, yeah, you need to get out of here.
That's incredible.
It was awesome. It was crazy. He's like, yeah, if you're actually serious about this, you need to get the hell out of here and go to LA or New York.
Right. Go to the real world. That's actually going to get you out of here.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible.
and I go, well, there's no state university system, California state university system in New York. He's like, yeah, well, if you want all these credits you got here to count, you're going to have to stay in the system. So I transferred to Cal State LA. They also had a film and TV program, actually smaller, half the size, half the amount of students, but way better because the professors running it were former, DPs and former directors that actually had worked in the business. And so they still had a ton of connections in the real business.
So as Failure started to get out there and, tour and put out records and everything, what was your relationship like for touring? Was it something that you enjoyed a lot at the beginning, and then once it became a regular part of your life, the relationship with that changed? Or was it always generally interesting and exciting for you?
Well, the first time doing it is super fun. When you're like 22 and getting in a van to tour the country for the first time, it's like on someone else's dime. It's awesome.
Right.
But then, like after you play 100 shows and check into 100 hotels, it's kind of like, I don't need to do that anymore,
Right.
Or it just gets boring. And so I just don't like the traveling aspect of it. The performance is just great, but the thing of it is you're on the road the whole time, and the performance is only 60 to 90 minutes. Right. So it's like the rest of it is just like living in a vehicle, in a bus or a van, or, I mean, it's first world problems totally. But like when you do like, there were a couple of years back then where we did 150 shows in a year, and it's like that's like more than half the year on the road. So
yeah.
And the other thing is, and I think one thing I've learned about myself over the years is that I love our fans, and I love hanging out with them, and I love playing Failure music, and I love the celebration of the show. But I don't think I get the same thing out of performing for people that a lot of other performers do get.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is like maybe like I'm missing out on the validation aspect of it or something. Or just like some people, I've just noticed that some people after like a show, they're just on cloud nine for days, like it's just like it really feeds their soul on a certain level. And I don't know, I never had that like that reaction to it. To me, it was, I mean, like I said, I love one of my favorite things to do touring wise now is actually meeting with the VIP stuff that we do, because you actually get to sit down and talk to somebody,
Sure.
and really have an interaction. Those are cool because they're unique. You're not going to have the same experience the next day.
Sure.
Sometimes the grind of the tour, you're playing the same set because of production aspects and lighting and cues and all that. So, it's not like you're up there improvising or
Right. Absolutely.
or composing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the, I know as your relationship with, putting up music and touring, and as you start to collect all these experiences, you start to be able to identify what you actually like about the process and the creative process, and be like, well, in order to do this, I have to do this. And sometimes that's what people end up like with touring and playing live, where it's like, well, I know I have to do this in order to like, press the flesh, like get that, feedback in a positive way. But then, I also like just hanging out with my pedals in my room.
Yeah. I mean, I see them, they're on equal footing to me, or maybe even the creative moments are more higher priority for me,
Right.
I mean, or I want to cultivate as much time, creative time as I can, squeeze it out of the schedule somehow. I don't know. I just think some of the best like real rock stars are just, chomping at the bit to get in front of that audience. That's where they become, it's like they reach their potential. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I've often thought that like, maybe if we actually had one of those people in the band, we would be further along in our career. I mean,
Sure.
I'm being totally honest. I mean, I'm just like, certain people, you look like, a David Bowie or a Scott Weiland or something. It's just like, they can't help but be rock stars.
Right.
When they're on stage. They just can't, it's just it's in their DNA.
Sure. Right. The magnetic personality of some people is just like, it's undeniable. And you're like, well, like that's what's going to lead, as opposed to, I mean, fortunately, they obviously are unbelievably creative individuals as well and have good music, but sometimes that isn't even that important. It's just like, wow, I got to watch this person,
Yeah. You're just, you no words really can describe it. You're just kind of mesmerized.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I always felt like, that maybe we don't have quite that quotient of rock starism in the band.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess with those earlier tours, and once you started to recognize that the band did, have people following along and understanding, what you guys were doing, even though you didn't fit into a particular scene. When did you feel, I guess, that the band was like, quote unquote, real, where it was like, oh, wow, people are paying attention to what we're doing, whether it was, an early tour or the fact that you obviously got signed to a record label, or maybe you still feel like the band isn't real. Just kidding.
Yeah, no, sometimes, I mean,
Sure.
it depends what you're comparing it to.
It's true.
Yeah. There were two. I would divide it up into two phases.
Okay.
The sort of like before getting signed and getting signed, that was like, a moment of recognition. Like, wow, somebody is going to actually spend money is betting on our music. Well, that's pretty cool. And then once you're signed, then the slow realization that you basically just walked into a bigger room that you're even, further behind in, if that makes sense. And you start realizing you need to actually promote your band to your own label. And, I think before you get signed, a lot of bands think, or artists think, oh, I just need to get signed. And then once you're signed, you realize it actually means nothing.
Right. Like that's where the hard work begins.
That's where the pressure starts.
Sure.
Because if you want to stay signed, you're going to have to sell records.
Totally.
So, yeah, it can be. It's more stressful in a way, because that's when it becomes real. That's when you've had to say no to some other things probably, and you've kind of committed to it.
Mm-hmm.
And now you got to make it happen.
Sure. Absolutely. I'd be remiss if I did not bring up Year of the Rabbit, just because I did see you guys when you were on tour with Thursday. And I personally love that record, and I know it's probably retained some, interesting cult-like status amongst people who are, big Ken Andrews fans. That was a one and done sort of major label debut, and then you guys obviously went your separate ways. You're still friends, but you had that record, and then it was kind of done. But it did seem like there was, for lack of a better term, momentum as the record got released, and you guys did your fair share of touring and stuff like that. Did it feel, I guess, any different than your experiences with Failure, or was it kind of just like a little bit of different skin on it?
Like from a creative standpoint, or like the more like career,
more like the career business side of things. Because sonically there are obviously similarities, and clearly there's a lot going on there that people can pull the threads through. But yeah, I guess from a business perspective, it felt any different.
Honestly, that the story of Year of the Rabbit from the business angle is kind of crazy, really. In the sense that, so I had already been in Failure, and then I had also had a solo deal as on with Sony.
Mm-hmm.
From 2000 to 2002, one album. And that was just like the crazy time, because both of them were like really high number record deals. Like I made some money on both of those deals.
Sure.
And especially the Year of the Rabbit was crazy. Like it was really crazy. Like I almost was like, this can't be real. And it just shows you how just out of whack the whole label thing was at that point, that Elektra would sign a band for close to $1 million, and then within 10 months drop them.
Right. Not care. It's true. Right.
I just thought, oh, fuck, they're spending that much money. They're going to have to recoup on us, right? No, because really the reality is that for a major label at that point in time, for them to really take a shot at something was a $3 to $5 million proposition, not a $1 million signing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they would spend money, radio, like tour support, like everything really added up pretty quickly. So, a big signing would still be a good write-off,
Sure. Right. It's like, well, we'll try it for a moment, and then you see where it goes from there. But yeah, in less than a year to not care about it and just wrap it up, it was like, I'm sure that's wild.
It was insane to me, because like, I'd kind of like sworn off being an artist, essentially, right? I swore it off after Failure broke up in 97. And then I went right back into it with a solo thing. Then that was just a heartbreaking record label tragedy again. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that ever again. And the cool thing is that I was getting plenty of producing and mixing work. So I got to keep doing kind of what I really wanted to do, which was be in the studio. And so I was acting like it didn't bug me. I'd just be like, oh, fuck that. I don't want to be an artist. But the reality is it was my heart was broken. I put everything into those bands or those records.
Sure.
And strictly for business reasons related to the labels and the staffing of those labels, those projects didn't happen.
Right.
That was it. I mean, especially the On one was crazy because that one was actually already on the radio and charting when the person that was heading up the label, who in the run up to the record coming out was like, yeah, we're going for this. We're going to spend some coin on it. Right before it came out, they took the chip off my number. And they put it out, but only so they could own it. Because I had a clause in my contract that said they had to release it. Otherwise, it reverted back to me. And
wow.
Yeah.
They had to claim that in order to, have the rights over it.
And my attorney warned me, don't put that in your contract. And I was like, no, I want to hold their feet to the fire. And he's like, yeah, it's not going to go that way.
You're like, this sounds like a good idea, though. Trust me. Yeah. Right.
And he knew what he was talking about.
Right. Yeah. You're like, yeah, well, hindsight's 20/20. I'm sorry.
Yeah. He was pretty much right about everything, basically.
But you live and you learn.
Yeah.
The last two things I want to hit on, then I'll let you go. Of the, I know that as you were talking about previously, in your apartment with all of your, fun tools and starting to experiment with recording, you clearly did a lot of recording on Failure. And like you mentioned, you have done a lot for a lot of different bands ever since. And like you said, you were kind of, licking your wounds after, Failure had disbanded, and obviously those experiences that you were mentioning. Was it just one of those things where it's like, as you started to settle into your identity as this, engineer, producer, mixer, did it become pretty comfortable quickly, or was it a difficult transition into being that kind of, hey, I'm the person that you hired to do this, and obviously I'm not going to, overstep my bounds and kind of figure out those lines?
Yeah, that was not a problem for me at all. It was very comfortable, super comfortable. It was like the only thing. And it's just obvious. It's just like you're not working on your own compositions. You're working on someone else's vision. But in the real nuts and bolts, what you're doing day to day, you're making records. You're recording acoustic guitar, you're recording a drum kit, you're talking about the arrangement, you're doing all the same shit. It's just, you don't have to, it's not your song, but also you don't have to go promote it. That was the other thing that I actually loved, is that, I'd work with a band and they would go out there and sell the records. Right. And I could stay home and make another record with another band.
Right.
It all made so much sense to me that it was very easy to just kind of shrug off people saying, well, are you going to do a band again? Or, are you working on any of your own new music? And, I'd just be like, why would I do that?
Right. I already did that. Yeah.
You remember what happened, right?
Totally. Dude, were you not friends with me back then?
Yeah.
Like this is what happened. You saw it.
Yeah, you saw it. It sucked.
Right.
Right. And then, it's just like one of those things. But the break between Year of the Rabbit and Failure rebooting was the bigger, more significant break. And it was like, I was not going to return to being an artist, really. A serious artist who toured all the time. I still did a solo record and played a few shows, but like the whole Failure rebooting thing was kind of unexpected because Greg and I weren't really hanging out too much. And then we both had our first kids within about 6 months of each other. And that is what triggered us hanging out. And ultimately led to actually playing music in my studio together.
Yeah. Kids can do that to you. It's really, it's cool too. I did attend personally that 2014 El Rey show. And I know that was such a interesting experience for you guys because it was just like, dude, this show sold out in like, 5 minutes. Like this is so wild. And there was a lot of pent up demand for it. Even though you guys, weren't necessarily aware of that. Was that, I'm going to guess that because of that, initial outpouring of support and interest from people of all, ages and shapes and sizes, that gave you kind of the motivating factor to, do what you guys do now, where, you play some shows, you dip in every couple of years with new music, and you can kind of control it now better than you could back in the 90s.
Yeah. And we own it all.
It's
a wholly different situation, like you're not beholden to some people's quarterly requirements or for anything, for either putting out product or sales or whatever, or having a band that's on tour this quarter or whatever it is. They had a lot. We basically were just being led around,
right?
Just like, this is what you're doing today. There was no question of whether it was like the right thing. We were just told to do it, and we did it. And now it's just like a complete owning your own business like this is a completely different situation. And we know our fans better. We hang out with them more, and I don't know. It's so cool to like actually make something, put it out yourself, and then actually get to reap the reward of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the full circle nature of it. The last thing I want to hit you with was I'm sure that you have participated in scenarios, usually from a record label brings an idea to a band and is like, hey, you guys should do this tour or do this promo opportunity that seems really awkward or just like, I don't know about this, but then you end up doing it just because, it's like, well, I guess this is part of the process. And then it turns out to be, really funny, awkward, or whatever the case may be. Were there any situations that, as I articulate that kind of come up in your head where it was like, oh yeah, that was funny. We did this, show at a gas station because we were told to do that or something like that. Anything come up in your head?
I mean,
you're like, where do I begin?
That's a long list. I mean, that is a freaking long list. I mean, opening for bands where it was maybe not super musically or appropriate would be like the minimal ones. Yeah, we played weird places. We played actually not Failure. I had something happen to me with On that was really bad, where the radio station was playing the shit out of my song, but they also played new metal.
Oh, yeah.
You know where this is going, right?
Yeah. Right. Please tell me.
And so someone had hey, we're going to have like a mini radio show festival thing. It's going to be so awesome. We're going to have all these different kinds of acts. It's going to be like 4 or 5 acts, but it's not going to be like a huge double day affair. We're just going to do it small, and it's going to be like more like not household names, like, you know, newer acts, and it's going to be smaller, and it's going to be inside. And I saw it on a piece of paper. It's just like, I saw 5 acts listed, and it seemed fine to me. It made sense from what I knew of these types of things, you know? So
Sure.
So we agreed to do it. What I didn't realize is that until we were going on, basically, that there was only 2 acts left. The other 3 had bailed for some other festival or something.
Okay.
So it was just my pop synth, you know, slightly dark Depeche Mode kind of, you know, project on with a full-on new metal group.
Beautiful.
And the problem is that the radio station hadn't really pumped the show. And by the time they did, all the tickets were gone because this other band's management had posted like a way for their fans to get tickets.
Sure.
And they bought all the tickets, and then the band actually paid to have them bust in.
Love it. And so you guys were just sitting there.
We were
just hanging out.
sitting ducks, basically, for some really angry young men.
Right.
You know?
Well, and especially, you know, if you're looking at the sliding scale of your most aggressive band, like On is for sure at the lighter end of the spectrum. So I could just see you being like, well, this is going to go terribly.
I said like, this is going to go bad. And I hold you responsible to my manager as I was walking on stage.
Dude, that's so
and
good.
Sure enough, like 4th song in, we had projectiles being thrown at us pretty much the whole time. But
Sure.
I think it was the 4th song in, someone, I don't even know how they got it, had a beer bottle. It was empty, but it landed on the drummer's drum kit and exploded in glass, went everywhere. No one got hurt. I mean, a couple little scrapes, but like I just walked off. I was just like, fuck this. See you later.
Yeah.
I flipped off the crowd and left.
You're like, I'm giving you guys exactly what you want. See ya.
See, the thing of it was, I was kind of used to combative crowds because we toured with Tool.
Sure.
So when we played our more, you know, poppy or melodic stuff, like we would have some issues occasionally. We occasionally get shit thrown, but we kind of knew how to handle it, and we always had, you know, heavier stuff that we could pull out anytime,
Right.
and we needed to. So we would adapt and survive. There was no way to survive that with On. I mean,
No, right.
I mean, it was either stay on stage and possibly be killed or leave.
Yeah, nothing you could pull out there could do any justice to that, nor did you want to do any justice to that event.
No.
Yeah. Well, Ken, I really appreciate you hanging out. Thanks for letting me ping pong around your brain. And I really appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem. My pleasure. Yeah. Absolutely.
That was Ken Andrews. Thank you very much to him. Thank you very much to his publicist, Monica, who is a friend of the show. And she always brings me great ideas, and I love to hear them. So next week will be the last episode of the year. I didn't take a break off this year. No dull moments in your podcast listening sessions. Next week is Todd Mackey, the vocalist from recently reunited hardcore, in my opinion, legends, With Honor. I've known Todd for a long time, and we just, kind of lost contact, but I was so excited to see With Honor back and playing shows, and they're going to be releasing new music next year. So many cool things, and Todd and I reconnected over the beautiful social media network, Instagram, and I was like, Todd, come on the show. Let's hang. I really want to know what you've been up to, and he's been a busy beaver. So, that's what we get to talk about next week. So Todd Mackey from With Honor. And until then, please be safe, everybody.
The demand for engineering, technology, management, and aviation professionals has never been higher. Organizations like NASA, Delta, SpaceX, and Lockheed Martin are recruiting in unprecedented numbers. Salaries are soaring, benefits are generous, and schedules are flexible. Come to Vaughn College's open house on Saturday, November 12th at 10 a.m. and find out how the skills you'll learn at Vaughn will prepare you to write your own ticket for a future-proof career guaranteed.
UFOs, psychic powers, chemtrails. To learn about mysterious events, you listen to the Stuff They Don't Want You to Know podcast. And here's where it gets crazy. Now you can read all about your favorite conspiracy theories in the Stuff They Don't Want You to Know book from the creators of the podcast. Dive into a smart, witty explanation of the unexplainable, packed with amazing illustrations. Available now. Order today at StuffYouShouldReadBooks.com or wherever you buy your books.
Are you crime curious? iHeartPodcasts has gathered the best true crime all in one podcast feed. iHeart True Crime Plus. It's packed with podcasts about unsolved murders, missing persons, organized crime, and more, so there's always something good to binge and share. iHeart True Crime Plus subscribers also enjoy ad-free listening, early access to select episodes, and exclusive bonus content. Subscribe to iHeart True Crime Plus today, exclusively on Apple Podcasts.